What happens when you take this, you add a little bit of this, and you subtract this? The answer? You get something kinda special. Let's get started. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello and happy post-holidays, one and all. My name is Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Before we get started, let me remind you, if you haven't done so already, pick up a copy of my book, Side Scroller, available on Amazon as we speak, and it comes in sexy paperback or equally sexy ebook. Check it out now. It's an adventure, romance, science fiction that takes place in a world that operates entirely on video game logic. I don't know how you could go wrong there. I really don't. Buy several copies for your friends and loved ones. It would help me out a bunch. Okay, plugs out of the way. I saw Bumblebee on Boxing Day. That's how I spent my Boxing Day. For all of those who do not live in Canada and you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, Boxing Day is not a day where we Canadians put on our gloves and go train at Mickey's Gym in downtown Philly. No, Boxing Day is the day that is after Christmas. It's December 26th, and it's our Black Friday. I don't know what the word Boxing Day is supposed to mean. I don't understand the etymology of that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into that. But I spent the day watching Bumblebee, and I want to say something to you about this movie, okay? Way back in, I think, February of this year, I made a video about my thoughts on the upcoming year and what 2018 in film was going to look like. I'll put a link to that video down in the description. But if you click on that video and skip ahead to 54 minutes and 45 seconds, I know it was kind of a long video, I'm sorry, you will hear me start to talk about Bumblebee. Now, this is way back in February, like I said, this is quite a ways away ago. I predicted that Bumblebee was going to be the best critically received Transformers movie ever. Oh, and what's this? What's this right here on the movie's Wikipedia page? That is the sweet, sweet sound of me being absolutely right 11 months ago. I got nothing more to say except swish. All right, let's talk about the movie. Bumblebee is great. It is so much fun. It is everything you could ever want in a Transformers movie, especially if you were a fan of the 80s cartoon. Now, I was not. I gotta preface that. I never watched the 80s cartoon. I still have, to this day, have never seen an episode of the original Transformers cartoon. It was just, it was a little bit before my time. It never really interested me. I used to watch Beast Wars back in the 90s. That was a thing. That was a poorly rendered thing. But the design on all the characters, on Bumblebee, on the other Transformers who show up, and I don't want to give away too much, but if you saw the trailers, you know who I'm talking about. Soundwave is in this. Those designs are straight out of the 80s cartoon. They don't look like the last 5 movies have. They don't have that modernized, sort of updated look. And that's because the movie is set in 1987, which was a great year. A lot of fantastic things happened in 1987, including the birth of someone who I think makes the world a much better place strictly with his own existence. Steven Spielberg has been a producer on every Transformers movie as far as I know. I could be wrong. I know for a fact he produced the first one, and for a fact he produced this one. The ones in between, I'm going to assume he did. But this is the first time that a Transformer film has felt like it has Steven Spielberg's fingerprints on it. Haley Steinfeld plays this teenage girl who's going through a tragic period in her life, and she lives in the 80s, and lo and behold, an alien comes to her through sheer happenstance, and they become friends, and the government's like, hey, we don't like this alien. And she's like, no, I like this alien. He's a good guy. He's just misunderstood. Everybody's scared of him because he's different, but he's not. Trust me, he's cool. And the government's like, no, he's bad. We're going to shoot him. And then there's evil aliens who are like, yeah, we want to come down and mess up your planet and shoot him too. And you see where I'm going with this. We've all been through the motions of this story before, whether it's been through good friends like E.T., or slightly less good friends, more like acquaintances like Herbie the Love Bug. We've been through all of that. This package, great as it is, has nothing new and surprising in it, but that's okay, because you know why? We have, in my opinion, the best Transformers movie to date. And the reason? Because this man threw money at it, and that is it. He did not write anything, nor did he direct anything. They kept him as far away as possible. And when you keep Michael Bay as far away as possible from your scripts and your cameras, what happens? You get a movie like Bumblebee. You get a movie with a very likable main protagonist who actually has an arc. What are the odds? An actual arc for a human character. What else do you get? You get characters that are not one-dimensional stereotypes and caricatures of their own selves. John Cena plays the human villain in this movie, and he looks like he's just having a blast. He's not just sitting there being cliche and saying, I'm the human villain, I'm bad, Michael Bay wrote my lines for me. Every time John Cena's on screen, you get the feeling that that is not a one-dimensional cardboard cutout of a military man. That is a three-dimensional guy with hopes and dreams and feelings and biases. And every now and then, those come out because humanity comes out when Michael Bay is not directing a movie. And for the first time in 6 films, we got a Transformers movie that actually has... what are those things called again? Quiet moments? You mean there are moments in this movie where the score is not blasting and things are not exploding and people aren't cutting back and forth like some kind of jagged LSD-inspired music video and making jokes even when they're not on camera, and there's just silence to allow tension and emotion to bubble up to the surface? Yeah! That's a thing that filmmakers sometimes do. And now it's being done in a Transformers movie. Wow, I sound really condescending right now, but that's okay. I've earned that right because it took 6 movies to get here, and we're finally here, and thank you, Bumblebee. Thank you, Travis Knight. Now, the movie's not perfect by any means. It does feel kind of rushed at places. It's not long. It's not even 2 hours long, so which makes it the shortest Transformer movie to date. It has some moments, particularly with an arc that Haley Steinfeld goes through that they get resolved, which is nice and satisfying, but they get resolved in kind of like a mid-credit scene in a very rushed and quick way, and I kind of wish that was pushed to just the tail end of the movie before we cut to black and given a bit more time to breathe. It's not as rushed as a Bay movie would have done it, because a Bay movie wouldn't have done it at all, but it's still not quite there yet. It's not quite at the point where it's like, yes, you edited that scene perfectly. It still has a little bit of bumps left in the road, but the movie preceding that was so much fun and just so heartwarming that I'll let those little things slide here and there. And that word heartwarming, I don't think that there's a more fitting word here, because for the first time in 6 films, and 10 years, I think, I find myself caring about the characters in the movie. Not just the human characters, but Bumblebee as well. I care about Bumblebee. The other movies did a very poor job of making the Transformers stand out physically and emotionally. The Decepticons were all like carbon copy to begin with. I mean, there was never any Decepticon who stood out for me in any of these films. And the Autobots had their colors, but that was just sort of like, hey, there's the green one, there's the red one. Neat. In this one, because I guess it's more focused and it's just Bumblebee, we get time to really just get to know this guy, this robot. And he does have a very expressive face, so maybe that helps too. But I found myself really caring about Bumblebee, and I found myself also feeling, fun when the villain robots showed up, being like, okay, yeah, these two actually have personalities. They're not just, we are Decepticons, boom. One of them, she's like the smarter one, and she's like, you follow my lead. And the other Decepticon is like, he's just there to blow shit up, and he's like, okay, but I got my gun handy whenever you need me to shoot some things, yo. The robots are not just set dressing anymore, and I like that quite a bit. And because of that, because of all these additions, because of the focus on the humanity of the robots, because of the focus on the humanity of the humans, because we actually have quiet moments now, all of a sudden I find myself being emotionally invested. I find myself watching a Transformers movie that almost got me choked up at one point. And you know what? That rockin' 80s soundtrack doesn't hurt either. Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right. This was an instance where I was very, very right. Bumblebee is, as far as I'm concerned, the best Transformers movie ever. And if you like the 80s, if you like old cars, if you like fun, if you like robots, you're gonna like Bumblebee. Go see it. Take your kids to see it. It's a much more family-friendly affair than the other 5. You know, there's not gonna be dick and fart jokes hanging around there because, again, we don't have to worry about this man getting in the mix. So take your kids. They'll love it. They're gonna fall in love with Bumblebee. They're gonna want Bumblebee toys. You're gonna have yellow beetles in your house for the next, year. That's a thing you're gonna have to prepare yourself for. So that's Bumblebee. It is wonderful. It is so much fun. I'm so glad it exists, and I hope from here on out, these are the kind of Transformers movies that we get. Because, like I said, even though I'm not a huge fan of this franchise, and I haven't been a fan of the cartoon, and it just wasn't something I grew up with, I understand that it's important to a lot of people, and I understand that this franchise is creative enough that it deserves something special like this. And it only took us 6 movies, baby. But we finally got there. So thanks so much for watching. That has been Thumb Together. I'm Andrew Fantasia. I will see you here next time. And until then, adios.